This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And my guest today is Coach Chris Michel. And you may have realized that we've had a lot of coaches on recently. And you know what? I need a lot of coaching in my life. I look back at the last 72 years and I'm amazed as where I am today. Um, but I know I'm here because I'm supposed to be. And I refuse to let anybody tell me it's not possible. So, Coach Chris Michel, what got you to where you are today?
Well, boy, there's a lot of things. I mean, obviously we are so complex, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean we've been through so many things in our lives that make up the person that we are today. So I'm 55 years into this journey, 55 plus years into this journey, and I've learned so many things, especially over the last several years, like yourself. You and I were just talking that there's just so many things that go on. And when you see those things, you have opportunity to learn from them, or you get to learn them again, or you get to see them again, right? They
Right.
reappear, and that's the frustrating thing. So, boy, what got me here? A number of things got me here, but probably most importantly is just my ability to learn and adapt and to grow over time. Those are the things that just kind of keep you going, right? Hopefully.
Right. Yeah. I used to remember hearing my parents say as we were growing up and they were getting older, um, how things have changed so drastically. And as a young kid, of course, I didn't see that, because I was so busy myself changing. And it wasn't until maybe my 40s that I started realizing, wow, look at all the changes I've experienced in 40 years. And since then, even so many more. Um, and some people can stay stagnant and decide, they're not going to learn how to use technology. They're going to walk around with blinders and their life is their life. And I guess that's okay if they're happy. But most of us want more. And I don't know about you, but I was taught when I was younger, um, it's terrible to make a mistake.
Yeah.
So for
Oh
most of
yeah.
my life, I was afraid of making mistakes.
Sure. I became a serial perfectionist because of it. So
I like that.
yeah, I struggled with that for a long time. And I had a boss tell me that one time. Her boss had said something to her, and I spend way too much time in the weeds, and I understand that. Being able to look at that and hear that comment, it made sense to me, right? And because I would think of things over and over and 16 ways from Sunday, right? Trying to figure out how do we make this thing perfect before we present it, because I have to put my best foot forward, and it's not just my best foot. It's all its perfection and glory, right? And when we do that, we rob ourselves of so much. And I talk about that in the book as well. It's one of those things that I got to learn, and I got to hear the message over and over again until I learned it. And I'm still learning it. I'm still learning how to be able to present something. And my book was a great example, right? You can write this thing and then you can edit it until the cows come home, and it's still not going to be right. It's still not going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to be as good as it needs to be. And, you know, I may have to run a contest and say, okay, first person who finds the mistake, you get a free, whatever. Right. And, but it's okay. It's okay because I'm human. And I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and something happened, and it kind of went sideways for a second.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, it's just part of life. It's just who we are and what we do. And it's so true. I mean, we're lucky to be here. We're lucky to have the things that we do. We're lucky to have the people around us that we do. And we're lucky to get to have the opportunities that we do. So I'm just glad to be on the journey now. I'm learning to be accepting of all of those things and just say, you know what, it's all right. Life's life.
Well, and you have this quote on your website, and I know I've heard it before, but when it says, when a reporter asks, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times? And it says, Edison replied, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. And that's how I live my life now. I didn't for most of my life. If I made a mistake, um, I was constantly asking for forgiveness. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, sometimes people would look at me like, what are you sorry about?
Mhm.
Well, sorry about failing you. Well, no, you didn't fail us. You didn't kill anyone. You didn't destroy the world. Okay, you made a mistake. What did you learn from it? And oftentimes, in the past, I learned regret. Now I gain wisdom.
Mhm.
And I think there's a difference in our society today. Um, Yesterday, my husband was on a call for a job, and they were asking him, so if you don't know how to do this, you do use Google, right? And he looked at them and he goes, if I want to get it wrong. And they laughed and they
That's
said,
great.
well, that's a great answer because everybody thinks Google has all the answers. And he said, nope. He said, there's more to researching, but part of that research can be an error.
Sure.
And then what do you learn from it? So what made you decide that you knew enough to be a coach?
Uh, that's still the jury's still out on that. Let's be honest. Okay. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean, I just got to a point where I wanted to pursue the idea of helping people. My why is very simple. I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, and I've learned this through working with that information and reading his book several times and going through a class actually. But my why is really simple. I'm inspired to help people do what inspires them so that they may be fulfilled. I learned that years ago that I enjoyed being a part of that team. I enjoyed being a part of that success, of a part of watching people grow and become a better version of themselves. And I could contribute to that. And when I learned that for me, that was huge because I couldn't do that in the corporate world the way that I wanted to. And I tried for a number of years. I tried to get involved with that. And everybody's like, well, you'll have to move here. You'll have to do this. You'll have to do that. A trainer, a coach, somebody that is involved in those kind of things doesn't necessarily have to be in one particular place. They don't have to live in Atlanta, Georgia. They can live anywhere because you're on the road 24/7, right? So that baffled me. And then they're like, well, you're going to take a cut in pay. Well, okay, I've been in sales forever. And I understand taking a step back, but if I'm contributing to the success and driving the revenue, why should I suffer for that? That doesn't make any sense, right? And so there's a backwards mindset in terms of coaching and training that says, number one, when the money starts to dry up, marketing and training go out the window. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense because those are the two most important things to what? Drive revenue.
Right.
So why would you eliminate those? But we see that as a downside. And trying to get people to come off of that mindset and trying to get them to understand, if nothing else, you need to double down on those things when times are difficult and when times are tough and when things seem to be drying up a little bit, because what's happening? Sales aren't happening because people aren't selling. It's not because people aren't buying, because they are buying. They're just buying from somebody else.
Right.
And so it's figuring all that stuff out. And so that was a long-winded version to your answer to your question. But what really got me into the coaching and to that aspect was my love for helping people out.
Well, it's interesting because when I was in corporate America, I was working for a college, and uh, students would come in and say to me, I want to be a nurse. And I'd say, why do you want to be a nurse? I want to help people. Okay, well, that's great. But you know what? I'm here counseling you. I'm helping you. And part of my job was to identify, is nursing the right thing for them? Or is, business or manufacturing? And sometimes they would get a little frustrated with me, but I
Mm,
want to help people. And I would have to find the way to get them to understand, you know, are you helping people at home?
mhm,
Tell me what you do for your family. Tell me what you do for your neighbors. Do you belong to an organization? Those are ways to help.
mhm.
Maybe that's where you do your helping, and this is where you do your work. And if we're lucky, it's all combined as one.
Right.
Although sometimes I'm not sure that is lucky because I feel like I work 24/7. Um, but
Yeah.
I love your answer because you understood that it wasn't so much about you, it was about how others were going to excel, and you could be part of that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. If you read the book Story Brand, that's the whole concept of the idea behind the book is you're not the hero. You're the guide along the path to the hero. And the hero is the client. The hero is anybody else but you. You never are the hero. And that's okay with me. I don't need to be front and center on the stage and doing all these things. I can do that. And I do that. And I speak and I do different things. And I've gotten in front of hundreds and thousands of people. That doesn't bother me. I've done stand-up comedy. Crazy. Um, and I really enjoyed it. But the thing I will tell you is I don't need to be that person on stage all the time. I'm fine with being behind the scenes saying, you know, go Karen, do your thing. You got this, right? And I'm behind you 100% and supporting you from the wings and doing what I need to do to help you to be successful. I love that.
So you were in corporate America in sales. Um, and I think it's interesting. A lot of people say, they'll never be in sales. And the reality of it is we sell ourselves 24/7. Um, I loved when my father pointed that out to me when I was applying to college. Uh, and I was having this difficult time writing this paper that says I should be a student at your college. And um, I couldn't think of, I didn't think I wanted to pat myself on the back. And my father said, well, what are some of the things you're good at? And I looked at him and I said, um, I don't know. I got a good work ethic. He said, okay, let's talk about that. And when we talked about those things, it was like, now put this in there. And I put it in there. And it didn't get me into the college I wanted. And so I thought, oh, I'm so terrible. But it got me into two others. And he said to me, they weren't looking for your skill set, but your two other colleges were, and you sold yourself. Now continue to do that with everything in life.
Mhm.
And I remind myself of that. And when I started the podcast, that's exactly where I came from. It was like, if people aren't buying into it, well, then take a look around. What is it I can do better? Or how can I change the way they listen? And those are the things that we do in selling. So when you decided to make the switch and become the coach, how difficult was it?
Actually, I learned to listen to the things that were coming around me. So I read a book a couple years ago called The Surrender Experiment by Mickey Singer. And that book allowed me to open up my heart and my mind to things that were happening around me. So when you say, how difficult was it? It was easy. And the reason it was easy was because all the things lined up the way that it needed to. The timing, the people that I'm working with, the people that I started working with, right? All of these things kind of came together And it was funny because years prior, people were like, when are you going to start your own consulting business? And I'm like, I don't know that I'll ever do that. Right. It's just, I've been in corporate my entire life, yet both my parents were entrepreneurs. And
Oh,
so, in fact, that cost me a job early on in my career. I was interviewing with somebody and I had shared that both my parents were entrepreneurs and they own their own businesses. And the interviewer said, so what's to make me think you're not going to go start your own business? And I'm like, I have no desire for that. I'm 20 something at the time, right? I'm like, that's never going to happen. Yeah. Fast forward 33 years, 30 years, right? And all of a sudden it's like, I can't imagine doing anything but this now. And so it was easy to transition because all the things that led to that, right? All of the years of work that I had done. You were talking about things setting themselves up and having regrets about time. Well, the entry for April 19th, by the way, the book is a daily read. So the entry from April 19th, 2 days ago, was about mistakes, right? And how we view mistakes and how we think, oh, if I wouldn't have done that, you wouldn't have learned the lessons. So if you're going to take away that experience, you've got to take away the lessons that you learned from it as well, and going forward. And I think that's one of the things I love about, and I had to learn about, was you have all these things in life that you did. I don't have regrets. And quite frankly, you put me back 20 years, 30 years from now, or, from where we were, and I wouldn't do anything different because those mistakes taught me so many things. And those experiences brought me to where I am today. So I could start my own business. So I could become a coach. And I'm not the coach, I'm a coach.
well, for some people, you may be the coach,
There
so
you go.
that's okay.
There you go.
It's interesting because I used to be very pessimistic. That was my whole life. It was about, making everybody else happy. Eventually I'll get happy. I'll be able to do what I need to do. But I never felt confident in it. Yet my husband was always this confident guy. And now we have switched roles, which I think is funny.
Hilarious. Right.
But it's interesting.
Mhm.
Um, and he's now realizing, wait a second, how did I become so pessimistic? I got to go back to that other side of me. Um, and so he's been researching and reading, and all of a sudden I'm noticing these changes. And I shared this in another podcast that those are that's typical of the mistakes that we make, but
Sure.
they're good mistakes when we can sit back and go, wait a second, what happened?
Yeah.
Um,
Time to take inventory.
absolutely. So the type of clients you get,
Mhm.
um, are they corporate people? Are they people who are just starting out, or someone like myself who says, wow, 71 years of my life has been like dull. I want to make my life exciting today.
Well, I am a sales and business coach. And so my focus really is on the small, and I really do focus on the small more than even the medium, but the small to medium business owners who are self-managing sales, and they shouldn't be. It's the folks that are in the heating and air, plumbing, electrical, home services type of industries. That's my focus because I spent the last 18 years in that world. And so I understand it. I've run heating and air conditioning companies, and we had plumbing and electrical that we did as well. But those are all part of the pieces that I've done over the years. So you stick with what you know, and you niche down to
Right.
that particular industry, right? And that's what I've done is I take that and I focus on that. And so my clients, a lot of them are small businesses. I've worked with a couple of SaaS companies, and I've got other companies that are kind of that middle size. Could I work with a large corporation? I absolutely could. I used to work for these multinational, companies,
Sure.
and I was in sales, and so I used to train the people that we hired. Right, that was part of my job as a senior salesperson. But I took those opportunities to learn from them and grow, and I use those things, those tips, those tricks, those techniques for what I do today, right? And I tell people this all the time. There's nothing new under the sun. And what I'm showing you, or what I'm sharing with you, I've learned these throughout the years. I may have put my seasoning on it. It may sound like a Midwest flair because I'm from Chicago originally, but other than that, you can listen to Zig Ziglar, you can listen to Tony Robbins, you can listen to all of these other John Maxwell and Brian Tracy, all these
Sure.
people you can listen to, and you can gather the things that I've gathered, or I can condense it down for you and we can work together and I can hold your hand along the way. And that's really the experience I give my clients. Is it's kind of a hand holding, and it's not in any kind of a weird way. It's just, I want to help you along the path, and I want to be there for you when you fall. I'm there to hold your hand and pull you back up and say, okay, we got this, no big deal. Let's just
Sure.
dust the dirt off and move forward. And I had that very conversation with somebody earlier this week. It's like, you know what? It is rough. It is challenging, but you got this and we can do this. And here's some things to think about. So I do focus on the smaller companies in the home services industry, but
So what I have noticed, when you talk about sales, it's totally changed in my lifetime.
Mhm.
Okay. On the weekend, I support IT in a Best Buy store. I go in there, I help their staff, you know, encourage them to ask the right questions,
Mhm.
to find out what the customer wants, to fulfill what the customer wants, not what they think the customer should be
Right.
buying today.
Right.
Um, and uh, some of them really get it.
Yeah.
Most of them do not. They just think that they should be able to point and say, that's perfect for you,
Right.
and customers should take it. I was in a department store the other day with my son, and he was looking for a suit. There were no salespeople around, not a one. There wasn't a measuring
Mm.
thing. So, like when he said, "Mom, I haven't bought a dress shirt in a long time. What size neck do I have?" I don't know. We
Right.
tried to figure it out. Um, and I finally found somebody, and I said, "Can you help us?" And she said, "No, I don't do that."
Mm.
So, what are we going to do in this world today where everything seems to be online? Everybody has their little niche, as we talked about,
Mhm.
but they can't help each other. How do we change that?
Yeah. I think that we need to look at how we approach people, and what I know sales is a dirty word, right? People don't like talk about sales or selling, or it has become this thing that we don't want to talk about. And the reason being is we've got this negative connotation in our head of what sales is. It's this slimy person with the plaid jacket and the
Right.
striped shirt and the pants that don't fit right. And, they're coming up with coffee stained teeth, and they're like, hey, let me help you buy that car because I got a deal for you. Right. Kind of thing.
Right.
But like you said, each one of us is in sales. Each one of us has an opportunity to share the value that we provide on a regular basis. And it's just like anything that we do, we should provide value. And to me, selling is providing value and helping people to see the value in it that meets their needs. And I've had this question or this conversation several times over the last couple of months, is what is value, and how do you sell value selling, right? How do you do
Sure.
that? Well, Karen, if I don't ask you, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you are hoping to get out of this experience? What are you looking to do with your revenue stream? What are you looking to do with your sales process, right? What are you looking for? If I don't ask those questions, I don't know what you want. And so it does become, you need this, you need this, you need this. And then it becomes something where you walk into the store, they go, not my job, don't know, just go pick one off the shelf, right?
Right.
And you go, yeah, I'm going to go down the street now because you're not providing a customer experience. 70% of people, I think it was a study that was done, showed that they increased their level of buying because of customer experience. So we have to get better at our customer experience or our customer service, right?
Right.
And if I can make you feel comfortable, and provide the answers that you need, whether it's my job or not, it doesn't matter. But am I knowledgeable enough to help you, or can I get the answers for you? Or do I just say, not my job, and walk away? Because if you do that, I'm leaving the store. As soon as you say
Exactly.
it's not my job, you know what, Karen, appreciate your time. Have a great day. And I may not come back to that store. And in fact, I'm probably going to tell several people that that was my experience with you in your store or you in your business, right?
Right.
Well, they had no idea. It wasn't their job. So I'm moving on. I don't do marketing, but I know people who do. I don't do HR, but I know people who do. I don't do CFO, type of stuff. I don't do financials, but I know people who do,
Right.
right? I can point you in the right direction. I can get you, connected with the right people. And I love doing that. So that's just part of it for me. But I think the biggest piece of that, the biggest issue that we're having is, you're right. So many people are niching down to this very narrow scope of what they can and cannot do. And they forget about everybody else. And they say, well, that's not my job. This is my job. That's great if that's exactly what I need. But if that's not exactly what I need, if I need somebody a little bit broader, I'm not all things to all men. However, I know people, right? I can get you connected to the right people. If you want to be on a podcast, I know a few people, right? So
Yeah.
if you want a specific type of podcast, right? I mean, if you want a specific type of book, I know I've mentioned a couple of them since we've been talking. I've enjoyed reading books and I've learned from them over time. And that's the way we learn and grow. And
Exactly.
that's how we provide that customer service for other people. Is you've got to be a little bit more flexible. We can't be so rigid in what we do. I understand about niching down, and we do need to niche down. I need to be specific in who I work with. Doesn't mean that I can't work with a big corporation. Doesn't mean that I can't work with, I worked with a company the other day that they're not inside the home services per se.
Okay.
I've had chiropractors that want to work with me, right? I mean, that's not home services. But I mean, again, I can help different people at different levels, but I'm willing to do that. If you're not willing to do that, then that's okay. But just know you're going to limit yourself in what you do. And hopefully you can bring around the customer experience.
Well, that advice is absolutely perfect, because growing up, I always thought I had to be able to know everything. And I'm not a good test taker. So when I'm given information, something that resonates to me is when you show me how to use it, how it means something to me. If you just give me information on something, it goes right over my head.
Right.
And so what I have done on my weekend job is I try to find out what each of these associates are good at. What do they
Mhm.
like? And most of them are somewhere between 18 to 25 years old. So they're very similar to my youngest son. And
Mhm.
so I can sort of talk the talk with them, but at just a slightly higher level, so they can take me seriously.
Right.
And it's interesting when I do that and admit, you know what? I know nothing about gaming. Okay. The only
Mhm.
game I know is solitaire. So if you're talking about gaming, um, you've got to give me that information.
Sure.
And that's how we open ourselves up. That's how our niche can get just a little bit bigger.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that that's where I'm going to settle, but at least I know enough to say, okay, I'm going to refer you to somebody else.
Mhm.
And we shouldn't be afraid of that in our
Right.
lifetime. But so
Right.
many of us are. We think we have to know it all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
And that's true. We just have to know enough people. Here's another good book, right? It's Who, Not How. And when we learn how to talk to the right people who can help us, I'm technical enough that I could build my own website. I don't have the time nor the technical abilities to do that. Can I do that? Could I read up on it? Could I do yeah, I probably could. And there's so many things out there that would afford me the opportunity to learn that. I don't want to learn that. I have an I have an IT company that does that for me. Why? Because I don't want to do that. It's the who, not how. And the who provides me the road to go and do the things that I really love to do. And that's why I do what I do. I'm the who to somebody's how. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to set up metrics. They don't know how to set up processes, KPIs, key performance indicators, right? They
Right.
don't know how to do all these different things. They don't know how to manage sales. And so I can come in and I can help them with that, set them up. And in a few months, we can get them rolling to where I can step away and they're a well-oiled machine now. And then they maybe touch base with me once a month or every, few months. And we have the, revisit the conversation and say, how are these things going? Great. Let's make some adjustments here, right? Let's adjust the process, because the process is not something that's stuck in concrete. It has to be a little bit more flexible, right? Because like you said, sales has changed over our lifetime, both yours and mine.
Right.
I've watched us go from, this is what sales is, to holy mackerel, this is what sales is. Okay.
Right.
And it's become so much more fluid. I mean, I'm in an industry in heating and air conditioning. I can honestly say I never would have, if you would have told me 18 years ago that there will be a time when people buy virtually their heating and air conditioning systems, I would have said, you're crazy. Because as a salesperson in that industry, I have to see certain things. I have to be physically there to see certain things. But now we enter the Zoom or the FaceTime or the, insert name here, right? Insert video name here, to where I could do it virtually. And there are people doing it virtually, by the way. And this has been happening for years. And so now I'm also having to coach and train people on how to sell virtually, how to have this conversation about your heating and air system over the internet.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because my husband was the IT guy at a technical college where they taught heating and air conditioning. And 2 years ago, I walked in the house one day, and within seconds, I had a horrible migraine. And I'm a migraine sufferer to begin with. And I thought, there's something really wrong. So I walked outside. I called my husband and I said, there's something going on in the house. I don't know what it is, but I'm afraid to go in. So he asked me a few questions. He called one of the guys from the school. The guy came over with his detector, and he said within seconds, he said, there's something wrong with your furnace. You have carbon monoxide poisoning in that house. And if you go in there, I guarantee that within minutes, you will be sick, if not dead. It was like, oh my God. Okay. But at that point, it was like, who do we call? We knew the guys at the school, but technically they couldn't install it.
They can't do the work. Yeah,
and
they can't do the work.
They couldn't buy it. And so my husband said, oh, you can buy this stuff online. And I looked at him like, are you serious? So one of the guys sat down with him at a computer. He measured what we had.
Yeah.
And yes, he brought it in, and then he found somebody who had just gotten his license who could install it. But number one, we're not all that lucky to be able to do it that way. Right. And if we hadn't had those people, how would I have known what size furnace I need? And is it just my furnace, or is it my hot water tank? And is it my air conditioner, or what else? And luckily they were able to come in and they tested everything. And it was both my gas hot water heater and my furnace that went at the same time.
Yeah.
So you're right. We think that we can do all this online with the right tools and the information. Maybe we can.
Maybe.
But when my husband was talking about it, he kept thinking he was going to install it. And I was like, no, there's no way.
No, when you're talking high voltage electricity and you're talking gas, natural gas, or liquid propane, you're getting to something that can kill you. Right. And so I'm not saying that to scare people. I'm saying that to say you need to think twice before you do that. Can you buy these things online? You can. Unfortunately, you can. But unlike, it'd be like you buying a car. If you went to GM or Toyota or whomever, and you said, oh, I want that car. And they sent you 20 boxes and they said, okay, here it is, assemble it. You go, what?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm mechanically inclined and I can follow directions, but I mean, how many of us put together the little plastic model cars, right? When we were kids, I used to do that. I used to love to do that, right? But even that was a lot of pieces. But unless you really like putting together puzzles and you're really good at it, heating and air system, it's not about buying the right equipment, because that's just one piece of it. 70% of all installation failures happen as a result of a poor installation, and they did something wrong. And so it has to be installed properly. Unlike a vehicle that you get that comes off the assembly line, that assembly line is everything, right? Same thing here with the heating and air system. Your heating and air system is made up of components, and those components need to be connected properly,
Right.
done properly, adjusted, right? There's things that need to be done. And so yeah, you're right. We get this in our head where we go, oh yeah, I can do this. No, you can't. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. For anybody listening in the HVAC world, please, I'm
Yeah,
on your side. Trust me, I'm not telling people to do this on their own. That's the horrible idea.
I totally agree. And my husband, it didn't take him long to agree. But at first, as he was reading stuff online, oh,
Sure.
this is easy to
Oh yeah,
do.
we could
It
do
is.
this. Yeah.
And first thing I said to him was, that desk that's out in the garage that you didn't want to put together because it had so many pieces? I don't want that to happen here. And that was my first thought. It wasn't even
Sure.
connecting it wrong. It was like just
What are you
connecting it.
leaving out? Yeah, what are
Yeah.
you leaving out, right? And that's the thing when we get I I used to hate that when they would send you these extra pieces, but they didn't tell you they sent you extra pieces. And so all of a sudden you got a couple extra screws and you're going, where do these go? And there's no thing that says, oh yeah, by the way, we sent you 2 extra screws just in case, right? But I used to hate those things.
But we learn from them.
Yes.
And that is the premise of today's podcast, is that it's okay not to know something,
Yeah.
but ask, learn, and do what you are best at. You
Mhm.
don't have to do everything. Um, for so many years, I thought, because my mother was a seamstress, and she gave me her sewing machine, I should be able to sew. You don't want to see anything I've ever tried to sew. It's just like, I don't, I really don't want to do it. So therefore, I didn't pick up the experience
Sure.
in it. Um, and people would say to me, well, your mother sewed. Why didn't you? Because that was my mother and I
Right.
am me. And
Yeah.
so for our listeners, we all have something that we are really good at. And sometimes it
Correct.
takes a while for us to find it, but
Yeah.
that's okay. The journey can be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, and finding what you're passionate about and what really kind of excites you that's huge. And when we realize those things, we can put those into practice and hopefully, like you said earlier, we can make those two worlds collide, right? Where it's our job and we do something we really love to do. And when those worlds collide, that's great, because then I don't remember who said it, but you'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do. You'll never work a day in your life.
Well, and as I've been sharing through our website and on Facebook and in all the podcasts in the last couple of weeks, that's what we encouraged our youngest son: do what you love to do. And
Mhm.
he was 2 or 3 years old when he fell in love with baseball, and he dreamed of being a major league player. Um, but he's so glad that he sort of went on the business side of it. Um, he thinks it's a little safer in some ways,
A lot
um,
safer. Yeah.
but he loves it. There was no other job before this that
Mm.
he could passionately go to, and at the end of the day, be happy. And whether it's winter, spring, it doesn't make any difference. He feels the green of the baseball field.
Mm.
And you know what? I tell people, please do what you love to do, because you're going to walk around with a smile on your face,
Right.
and that's going to be contagious. And I think we need more smiles in this world today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Chris, how can they find you? How can our
Well, gosh,
listeners find you?
yeah, the best way to find me is I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. I'm on YouTube. I have that stuff too. But my website is coachchrisconsulting.com. It's
Okay,
probably the easier way to find all of that stuff, right?
absolutely. And your picture's there, so, they
It
when they get
is.
there, they say, "Hey, that's the guy I saw on, the podcast," which I think is
Right.
wonderful. Um, so before we end, is there any task you tried to do that took you 1,000 steps?
Sales. I mean, like anything, there. Malcolm Gladwell talked about this in one of his books, Outliners, and he talks about the 10,000 hour rule, and that is what it takes to become a master. And that's not the end all be all. That's not that doesn't mean everybody has to take that journey, but we all have to do that. We all have to fail. We all have to learn. And if you're passionate about it, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And you learn and you learn and you learn. And as you do those things, it all comes to fruition, right? It all will come into place. And so I like, Malcolm's conversation around the 10,000 hour idea, which is it takes you about 10,000 hours to become an expert. It takes 1,000 failures to become an expert, right? Whatever you want to call it. But we all get good at something, and the thing that we were passionate about, and probably like your son, right? He didn't step out, at 2, 3 years old and was this awesome baseball player.
Right.
He had to learn, right? He had to learn how to be an athlete. He had to learn how to do the, hold the bat and throw the ball and hold the glove and all these other things. And so the things you want to become good at, you will become good at, and you'll fail at them so many times. But it's you just keep getting up, you just keep going forward, and the failure turns into a learning expense. It's a learning experience, sorry. But it's not a failure. It's an opportunity for learning.
I love that. There are lots of opportunities out there, and it's up to us to just take the step and try it out. And there's forks in the road, and follow those forks.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris, for joining us. We hope to have you back again.
Thank you, Karen.
Have a great day. Bye-bye
You too.
now.